Hello everyone, this is what a 6 panel or a 6 pieces blouse looks like. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to craft it. It is very simple, and if this is what you're interested in learning, keep on watching and let's get started. Here is the pattern paper I'm going to be working with. So from the top of my pattern paper, I'm going to mark down to 1/2 inch, which is going to serve as our baseline, or you can either call that the shoulder point. Okay, so I'm going to draw it horizontally like this, and after that I'm going to place my tape on this shoulder point, and then I'll be marking out my bust point of 11 inches. So whatever it is that you have as your bust point, go ahead and input that. Now after that, I'm going to go down to the under bust point, 14 inches, and then the waistline is 17, and I'll mark out the length of this my blouse. Okay, so the length I'll be making use of 27 inches. The length is actually 26, but I want to extend it to 27 inches. Okay, so I'll be doing the same thing on the other side so that I can easily connect my points together. Okay, now after marking it out, I'm going to draw it across just like this. So you guys, you can see I have my bust points, I have my under bust points, I have my waistline, and then the length of my blouse. Now after this, from here I'm going to move over to the shoulder point, and then I'll be labeling this. Okay, so I have my shoulder point, I have my bust point, I have my under bust point, the waist, and then the length of my blouse. Next thing I'm going to do now is to divide my shoulder measurement into 2 and add 1/2 inch for shoulder sewing allowance. Now after that, I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and from the bust point I'm going to go up by 1.5 inches for the chest line, or you can either divide your bust circumference by 6 and add 1.5 inches. Okay, so either way works out perfectly well. So after marking it out, I'm going to draw out my chest line, you can see, and on this chest line I'm going to also input my shoulder measurement divided by 2. Okay, and then I'll connect it to the shoulder slope just like this so that we have our armhole depth. Okay, now I'll label that the chest line. Now after this, I'm going to mark out my neck width and the neck depth for the front. So I'll be making use of neck width of 4 inches and then the neck depth of 4 inches as well. Now I'm going to use my curve to connect the points together. And after connecting it, I'm going to equally connect it to the shoulder slope. Okay, just like this. Now from here, I'm going to divide my armhole depth into 2. So whatever I have, I'm going to mark the middle, and I'll be going in by 1/2 inch. Now I'll move over to the chest line, and I'll divide my bust circumference by 4, and then I'll mark it out. So on the whatever I have on the chest line is what I'm going to have on the bust point as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and connect my armhole curve, and I'll be moving over to the under bust point. Now to the under bust, I'm going to divide my under bust circumference by 4, mark it out. Move over to the waistline, divide my waist circumference by 4, mark it out, and then move over to the length, divide my hip circumference by 4, and then mark it out. Now I'm going to connect all these points together, as you can see. So please take notes of the way I am using my curved ruler. Okay, now I'm going to mark out my bust pan measurement. So on the bust points, I'm going to come in by 4 inches. I'm working with 8 inches bust span, so divide it by 2, and from the center front you're going to come in by 4 inches all the way to the length of the blouse. Okay, now after that, connect the points together, and on the waistline we are going to have to contour the waist. Okay, because this is a bustier blouse and you want to give your under bust and the waist that fitting. Okay, so right by the side I'm working with 1.5 inches, and in the middle I worked with half an inch. Okay, so I marked it out on the under bust, on the waistline, and then on the length, and now I'm trying to connect the points together. So you can see I've successfully removed 2 inches. Okay, so what I am going to do now is from the bust point I'm going to come down by half an inch, and I'm equally going to go up by half an inch. This is just to create room for my boobs to fit in properly and eliminate any form of sharp curve around the bust. Okay, now I'm going to connect from the under bust to this half an inch, and equally do the same thing to the other side, as you can see. Okay, now after this I'm going to move over to the armhole curve, and then I'm going to measure whatever it is I have right there. So you can see what I am doing. After measuring whatever I have, I'm going to divide it by 2, and then I'm going to equally start from the shoulder slope and measure, then mark it out. Okay, now after marking this out, this is the middle of my armhole. Now from this middle I'm going to come down by 1 inch. All right, now after coming down by 1 inch, I'm now going to tighten my armhole. Okay, using half an inch. So from this 1 inch mark I'm going to mark out half an inch from both sides, and then I'm going to go ahead and connect it to the half an inch above the bust point. Okay, so you can see what I am doing. I've connected the middle. I'm now going to connect the half an inch by the sides, by the both sides. Okay, just like this. Now once I'm done with this, remember we have tightened the armhole with 1 inch, so we are going to have to raise it up on this particular dart, which is towards the side. Okay, so I'm going to have to raise it up by this 1 inch, because if you don't do that, by the time you try to join your center front and the side fronts, okay, the side front is likely to short. Okay, now I'm going to equally replace that on the chest line and then input my sewing allowance. So for here I'm using 2 inches for my sewing allowance. I'll move over to the under bust. Remember we have contoured the under bust using 2 inches, so we are going to replace that and add 2 inches for sewing allowance. I'm going to repeat the same thing on the waist. Replace 2 inches for the dart intake and add 2 inches for sewing allowance. The same thing goes to the length. Replace 2 inches, okay, for the dart intake and 2 inches for sewing allowance. Now after that I'm going to connect my new armhole and then equally connect all the points together, as you can see me doing like this. So guys, as you can see, we have successfully drafted out the front pattern. Now I'm going to input my shoulder sewing allowance. If you don't want to input it on the pattern right here, you can leave it, and whenever you want to cut on your fabric you go ahead and input that, but I love to do everything on the pattern. Okay, now you guys, we are done, and this is our front pattern. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. Okay, so you want to pay attention to how I'm cutting this out, because this is very strategic. If you don't cut it out properly, you're going to spoil this block. Okay, so as you can see, I am done cutting out the center fronts and I am cutting out the side fronts as well. Okay, so guys, I hope you are finding this tutorial helpful. If you do, don't forget to give this particular tutorial a thumbs up and remember to share it so that more people can get to see it. So guys, we are almost done with this tutorial, but we are not yet finished with it. So here is my side fronts. For now, we are going to have to put this aside. Remember, we have not input our 6 pieces shape, okay? But first of all, let's draft out the back. Now here is my basic back block. You can see I've input my darts, my shoulder points, every point is intact. Okay, now if you want to make use of a princess dart, which is armhole princess dart, you're going to have to connect from your middle of armhole to this bust point line. But here I'm going to make use of shoulder darts, so I've divided my shoulder into two, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it back to the bust point just like this. Okay, now guys, let's go ahead and input our sewing allowance. So on the chest line, I'm going to input my 2 inches sewing allowance. I'll move over to the waist, replace my 1 inch dart intake, and then add 2 inches for sewing allowance. Now on the hip, I'm going to input 2 inches for my sewing allowance, and I'm going to connect all these points together. Now guys, after this, we're going to move over to the zipper because we want to contour the zipper to avoid any form of bulge. So from the zipper allowance, I'm going to go out by 1 inch, and then I would connect it back to the neckline. Okay, just before the neckline, not right to the neckline. Okay, and from the waistline, you're going to have to mark down to 6 inches, just like you did for the darts, and then connect it to that point. And then after that, go ahead and input your shoulder sewing allowance of 1/2 inch, and then connect it together. And you guys, yeah, this is our back block. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. As you can see, please pay good attention to how I'm cutting this out. It is very important, like I said before. So you guys, you can see what I am doing. I would also like to plead with you guys to share this particular video because it is very important. It is beginners friendly, so if you know any beginner, please kindly share this video to that person so that he or she will get to learn how to cut a 6 pieces blouse. It is actually so simple. Okay, so you can see I've cut out the side back and I'm working on the center back. Now once we are done, I'm going to bring in some paper, okay, scrapped paper, so that we can be able to input our A shape for the 6 pieces blouse. You know, this is just our front and the back pattern. We haven't even input the 6 pieces shape. Okay, so here it is. Now I'm going to have to remove the back block, okay, so that we start with the front block, you guys. So here is my 2 front block, the center front and the side fronts. You're going to be needing your paper tape or any tape that you can make use of. You can either make use of a pin, okay, to pin this up, but I would advise you make use of your tape. So right to the center front, I'm going to have to input this paper and then tape it down. So what we are going to be doing is we're going to have to connect like a shape from the waistline down to the hemline. Okay, so right from the nipple to nipple line, we are going to measure 2.5 inches and then connect it from the waistline to this 2.5 inches, just like this, and then cut it out. Okay, so this is what is going to give you the 6 pieces shape. Now I don't want the down part of my blouse to remain straight. Okay, I want it a little bit curvy right at the down part, so I went up by 1 inch and then I marked out the middle and connected it back to this point. Okay, so and then I went ahead to cut it out. So this is what I'm going to do to the remaining part. So you can see to the center front I added just by the side, leaving the middle just like that. Now moving over to the side fronts, I'm going to have to input extra paper on both sides. As you can see, I'm trying to tape it down. Now once I am done taping it down, I'm going to mark out 2.5 inches, okay, just like this. So I've marked out on this part. I'm going to repeat the same thing to the other side, and then I'm going to have to use my curve ruler to connect from the waist points down to these 2.5 inches on one side, and then I would repeat the same thing to this particular side. Okay, so now next I'm going to have to measure the distance between the two sides and then mark out the middle points. After marking out the middle points, I would go up by 1 inch on both sides, and then I'll simply go ahead and cut this out. So now I'm going to have to connect from this 1 inch to the middle of the center front, just like this. Okay, I'll repeat the same thing to the other side, and then I'll go ahead and cut it out. Okay, just to give it that shape. Okay, I don't want it straight at the down part. I want it a little bit of curvy, okay, to give it this very fine shape at the down parts. But if you want to leave yours that straight, you can go ahead and leave it like that. Okay, so we are done with the front block. I'm going to repeat the same thing to the back. As you can see, this is my center back, and I added a piece of paper and then marked out the 2.5 inches as well. Now to the zipper area, I'm not going to be adding any paper or extending any form of 2.5 inches to that particular zipper area. Okay, so after that, I also went ahead to go up by 1 inch and then marked out the middle and connected it to the middle parts, and then I would cut it out. Now this is for the center back. Equally going to repeat the same thing to the side back. Okay, so right at the side back, I'm going to input 2 papers, okay, by the sides, just like I did for the fronts. And after that, I'm going to mark out 2.5 inches as well on both sides. All right, and then from the waistline, I'm going to connect down to these 2.5 inches. Now after doing this for one side, I'll repeat the same thing for the other side, and then next I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. Okay, so now that I'm done cutting it out, next thing is for me to go ahead and come up by 1 inch on both sides. And then after coming up by this 1 inch, I'm going to measure to mark out the middle, and then I would use my curve ruler to connect from this 1 inch to the middle right on both sides. Okay, so as you can see, I am repeating exactly the same thing that I did for the fronts on the back block. Okay, so I'll go ahead and cut it out, and you guys, yeah, this is it. This is how to cut out your 6 pieces or 6 panel blouse. It is that simple. Okay, so in my next tutorial, I'll be showing you guys how to sew this together. I hope you found value in this tutorial. If you do, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to share this video so that more people can get to see it. I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye.